Hey guys, it's a Vodka and Coke sort of a video today as I talk about the precarious nature of ADHD medication, and the reason I wanted to talk about it is because I find myself quite suddenly unmedicated. Typical ADHD fashion, I completely forgot to buy some Diet Coke to go with my lovely Absolute vodka, so I'm only going to be having the one tonight, which is quite depressing because I could do with a couple. Anyway, I digress. The subject of this video, precarious nature of medication. So let me fill you in on what's happened. About 3 years ago, I got diagnosed by a clinical psychiatrist and was prescribed Ritalin. And after a process of titration, which is working up the dose levels, I arrived at a meaningful and very useful dosage level of Ritalin, and I would get my prescription regularly filled, and I found it to be very useful in my working life. I became a much more productive individual and just a better human being in many ways as a result of the amphetamines. So before I go any further in discussing this, I would just like to point out, in case you haven't worked it out already or you don't know, I'm based in Australia, where we have a kind of half public, half private sort of a health system. We have a public section of the health system, which is called Medicare, and a lot of treatments are free on that or substantially subsidized, and ditto with medicines. There's a whole list of medicines which are greatly subsidized, and we as taxpayers all chip in, and we enjoy an excellent level of healthcare in this country on a whole. Now, one area that isn't completely covered is things like seeing a psychiatrist, and so whenever I go and see my shrink, I pay about $180 for the honour. I get a small amount back from the government, but not anywhere near all of it, and it's an expensive process. And one of the reasons why in this country a lot of people simply can't afford to do that. They can't afford to pay that kind of money to go and see a shrink and to regularly go back to that shrink and have them refill your script so you can get your medication. But that's not really the subject of this video. So things have been ticking along okay for 3 years. When I needed my prescription refilling, because I'd used all the allowances on it, I would ring up, and pre-COVID I would travel to the nearby city of Wollongong, have a very brief sit down with my psychiatrist, and he would write me a new script, and off I'd go and get my Ritalin. Once the pandemic happened, all those appointments turned into telehealth. It was the same the world over, and in all honesty I actually preferred it, because a psychiatrist was a bit of a wanker. He just enjoyed talking about himself, to be honest with you. I was paying $200 of good money of my own to hear this man tell me his problems. It was quite a peculiar situation, but in all honesty, I couldn't give a shit about that. As long as I kept on getting my Ritalin, I couldn't give a shit if the guy was banging on about his own life and not giving a flying fuck about the patients he was supposed to be treating. So last time I picked up my Ritalin script at the pharmacy, they said you've only got one more to go on this, so you need to get your script renewed. So I did what I always did, which is phone up my shrink, make an appointment. I said I want a telehealth appointment, it's fine, and they gave me a time and date for that appointment, and the day came around and I had the appointment. It went the same way. He banged on about himself for 15 minutes and then said he would renew my script. I didn't think much of it because, as I say, it's been going on for 3 years, but when I went down to the pharmacy to pick up my script, it wasn't there. So I emailed the doctor's administrative assistant and I said, something gone wrong. My script has not materialised at the pharmacy. I haven't got my Ritalin and I'm getting extremely low. No response. I try again a couple of days later and same thing. I'm speaking into a void and getting absolutely fuck all back. So then I phone up, and here's where things start getting a little bit sketchy. Turns out that my psychiatrist is no longer at the large practice in Wollongong that he used to operate from, mental hospital. He's moved to something else, another hospital called Wollongong Central in the middle of town. So I thought that was a bit odd, but anyway, I got a new phone number and I phoned up. So the phone rang and I got a voicemail and it said, please leave a message for any inquiry, after the tone, and then there was a beep and it said, sorry, this mailbox is full. Warning sign. So that was at the end of that week, and so I waited until the following Tuesday. They aren't in the office on a Monday, and I tried again, and this time the mailbox was empty and I could leave a message, but by now I'd run out of my Ritalin, so I kept on phoning, and eventually I got through to a human. So I spoke to the doctor's new administrator, and she, while she couldn't tell me what was going on, by a process of reading between the lines, explained to me that there had been some incident or other, and the good doctor was no longer legally allowed to prescribe Ritalin or other, highly secure amphetamine-like drugs to patients at all. She said that he was still consulting, but if I wanted a script, I was shit out of luck. So I pointed out to her that I'd had this telehealth meeting with him about 3 weeks prior to this, and I'd paid $200 money to get a new fucking script, and I'd really fucking appreciate if she could see if we could get that script released. And she offered a tiny glimmer of hope, suggesting that because it was 3 weeks ago, my script may have been before whatever this incident was that the bad doctor was involved in, but nothing came of it. No script was forthcoming, and all my attempts to contact the doctor or the assistant since then have disappeared into a huge fucking black hole. So here I am. I'm now about 3 weeks since I had my last Ritalin. I have kept 2 spare in a little secret location for some unknown future event I might desperately need a couple of Ritalin for, or maybe I'm just sort of consoling myself with keeping them back. Now, for obvious reasons, things like Ritalin and Adderall are highly controlled over here, and only, and this is in Australia again, here only a clinical psychiatrist can write you a script for this. Your GP can't, a psychologist can't, has to come from a clinical psychiatrist. So obviously I needed a new one, and that's pretty funny. That's my medication reminder just come up on my Apple Watch to tell me to take my my insulin. And earlier on I got my Ritalin reminder. I'm going to have to remove that because it's going to be some time until I get some. So I managed to get myself an emergency appointment with my GP because, of course, now I need another fucking referral from my GP to go and see, to try and acquire, to get on the books of a new clinical psychiatrist. And, of course, going to the GP, that was another cost, another $100. Thanks, doctor, my old doctor that screwed up and led me down this particular avenue. Oh, I've got such happy, rosy feelings for you, mate. So anyway, got this emergency meeting with the GP, got a new referral. They faxed it through to this group mental hospital, and the suggestion was that because the doctor had operated from there and they have 15 other psychiatrists operating in that, it should be okay to get on the books of a new psychiatrist and get myself medicated again. So I sent through my referral, and then I phoned up hospital and I spoke to a very nice lady who revealed to me that the waiting list is getting on for 9 months. She said there was an outside possibility that, given my situation, that I am diagnosed and that I have been prescribed Ritalin for 3 years, they may be able to get me onto the books of another psychiatrist. So, as I say, it's been about 3 weeks since I had my last Ritalin. And it's noticeable. That's the weird thing about Ritalin. It's such a benign drug. You don't really notice what it's doing. But when you've been taking it and you stop, you certainly notice its absence. I basically found myself reverting to form, which is doing all the kind of stuff I shouldn't be doing when I have actual work to do. We have a small web design business, which my wife is the backbone of, and she's the one that basically keeps a roof over her head. And when I'm on Ritalin, I'm able to help her with that. I'm pretty good, you know. We can do small jobs. I'm no coder like she is, but there's lots of stuff I can do, and it's worked out okay. But now that I'm unmedicated, I find myself fanning around, spending an eternity on Reddit, going on YouTube, you know, all the classic time-wasting stuff that we all do. I'm sure you know, and I fully understand all this stuff too. But it's already had an impact on the amount of work. So she's got more to do because I'm being singularly shit, and I don't feel good about that. But you know what it's like when you have got these bloody diminished dopamine levels to motivate yourself to do this work, and you can find a million other things to do other than the thing you're supposed to be doing. So the return to the old unmedicated Andy is not a very pretty picture. Ritalin is not addictive, but it is, in my life, essential. Now, I know in the grand scheme of things, here in Australia and in my situation, I actually had it pretty good compared to many people's situation around the world. In countries like China, it's absolutely impossible to get prescribed medication for ADHD. It's literally impossible. And so I understand that I'm in a relatively privileged situation to begin with. But I wanted to make this video just to talk about the precarious nature of this and the fact that things can and probably will change. I don't know if there's anything you can really do to prepare for something like this. I did a few months ago sort of have an idle thought about the fact that my psychiatrist was getting a bit long in the tooth. He's an old bastard. And I was thinking, geez, he's not going to be practicing for that much longer. I should probably look into getting another shrink. But, you know, things were ticking over. I was getting my scripts filled, and so I never did anything about it. And, of course, I bitterly fucking regret that now. I know from stuff I've read in the comments on this channel and on other channels that certainly my friends over in the United States of America have similar kinds of situations with healthcare professionals, psychiatrists, psychologists who are suddenly withdrawing their care or script, and people suddenly find themselves going without, or pharmacies saying that they don't believe in ADHD and refusing to fill a prescription. There's all sorts of fucking craziness going on, and it sometimes feels to me, my friends, that it's us against the fucking world. And honestly, it feels sometimes like pushing a fucking boulder up a hill, you know? 2 steps forward and 1 step back. You know, I found myself in a situation where I'm on a relatively even keel, and some fuckers come along, this stupid fucking wanker of a shrink of mine, stuck a stick in the spokes of the wheel, and I went flying over the handlebars. And the thing of it is about him, I'm really pissed off with this guy, because he treats people with very serious mental issues, schizophrenia and stuff like that. And I'm not sure what medication people get for schizophrenia, but I can imagine it's pretty essential and could have a devastating effect on their lives if they suddenly find themselves unmedicated, or if you're suffering from bipolar or something, you know, and there's some special medication that only a clinical psychiatrist can write a script for, then you're well and truly fucked. So I'm, you know, prepared to take it on the chin that in the grand scheme of things, all the people on his books, there are probably people in a worse situation than me, but I can't speak about them. I can only talk about my own situation and the fucking awful, realization that it's probably going to be, maybe the better part of a fucking year before I can get back on Ritalin and enjoy the many benefits of this particular medication. So I guess the takeaway from this, if there is any, is to shore up this system in your life. And if you can, put safeguards in place to ensure that you're always getting your scripts filled, the medication you need to be a more functional human being, then I suggest you investigate them. All right, the vodka and coke's gone. Seems like a suitable moment to wrap up this little video. Let me know about your situation. Do you have trouble getting your ADHD meds, or have you got a nicely rolling along sophisticated little system going for you? Let me know in the comments section and we can talk about it. A problem shared is a problem shared. I don't know what the fucking saying is. Anyway, guys, not a terribly upbeat video, but I just wanted to talk about this with a bunch of people who I knew would understand. Till the next time, guys. Ta-ta.